Okay, my name is Debbie. I live in the old Avoca Schoolhouse in Avoca, Nebraska, population 242. It's an old brick building. My floors are from 1925. They're wooden, they're really nice. And the dust bunnies love it. And we bought the building because of the acoustics. We were shopping for real estate we couldn't afford. And my husband, David, who is our technical advisor, would bring his harmonica when we would be shopping at places that nobody could afford. And the acoustics were usually bad until we got here. And even before we got to the wood floors, it was the high ceilings and just really great. So we're here. So the first thing I wanted you to see on the screen is a version of The Dark Island. It's a great tune. I would encourage you to learn it. I would start out by playing those bigger notes. You will notice there are big notes, and there are these little itty bitty things that are also notes, but they're itty bitty. Those are ornaments that bagpipe players would use to play this tune. This is about as weird as it would get in terms of ornamentation. What we'll be doing today will be much simpler, and I think by the time you get to the end of experimenting with the ornaments I show you, you will realize that you would never have to put yourself through that. So it's for extreme use only. So let us proceed to the first ornament I will be using, which is the mordant. The mordants are great. They're really small. They're like itty bitty trills. You can put them anywhere, and it's lots of fun. And in this case, you'll notice on the sheet there's upper mordants, and then there's lower mordants. And either one will work. It just depends. Sometimes composers will specify which they want. In which case, the upper mordant is that little squiggle thing that you see underneath the second note there. That's the little squiggle thing. The lower mordant, measure 17, is also the little squiggle, but there's a line through it. If there's a line through it, it's lower mordant. Big deal. Not a disaster if you mistake the one for the other. It's just that you could really be that exact. So let's play through it. Now what I've done is on the top line, you have what you might see in a standard notation tune. You would see the note and you would see the indicated squiggle. What you have in the bottom part is the realization of the squiggle. So if you were just going to do that plain, the first two measures without any squiggles anywhere, it would be. But you add the squiggle and you play the realization on the bottom. Got it? So let's play through it. So this will be a D major scale going up and down using the upper mordant. So you're playing the note that you're ornamenting, the D, and the note above, that makes it upper, and then back to the note. 1, 2, ready, go. Easy peasy. When you get to do an ornament where you might have the option of using an open string, you're better off staying on one string. So like, for example, let's see. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, fourth measure from the bottom, from the end, I mean. If you used an open A, that would be crazy. So you want to keep it on one string, so make sure to keep your fourth finger handy. You will need it. Okay, now let's do the lower mordant. So again, the note we're ornamenting comes first, and then the note below that note, which in this case, because of what I just said, you should probably use a fourth finger for that first D. So you could go, and then switch strings. So watch out, have fun. 1, 2, ready, go. Fourth finger here. Fourth finger. Fourth finger. So it's very cool, very easy to fit in anywhere. Any questions? Okay, let us go to the next thing. Trills. Trills are particularly useful when you have a lot of space and you don't know what to do. So the best thing to do is do a thing that you know and then just keep doing the thing that you know. So a trill would be, and I've notated them as a 30-second notes, but you can certainly do them faster, do more of them in the space you have. So this is just one of those music history things. This is how you would do a trill if the music was written before 1800. So you would play the note and it would be like an upper mordant event. You'd start with the E and then that kind of a thing. So let's do that. Good luck. 1, 2, 1, 2. E, D. Fourth finger. Fourth finger here too. And again. Fourth finger. Now, if you don't happen to know if the tune was before 1800 or afterwards, then don't worry about it. Just try one of them, and if it feels good, do it. Trills after 1800, don't you love these details? Same kind of thing, but you go from the lower note, the note just below the ornamented note. So, so it would be like, well, you definitely use a fourth finger here. No, maybe not. Okay, here's what I would suggest here. Second position, a 3 for the D. Then you can keep the whole ornamental doodle on one string. And then feel free to change strings at your earliest opportunity. But these are delicate things. They like to be together on one string. You wouldn't want to separate them. So good luck. So now we're doing the after 1800 trill. Everybody ready? 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. as is, there are several other places where second position would be the solution to keeping the doodle on one string. And I absolutely would do that. Okay, now we get into, oh, and these ornaments can transcend different styles. You don't have to do it on a particular ethnic tune or a classical tune. These ornaments are just useful anywhere, just like you would use quarter notes anywhere. It's the same kind of thing. The next doodle is the, let's see, I want to do the crayon next, or did I skip a page? Yes, I did. Okay, so the cut is the next one. This is particularly considered Irish. One thing I like about it is you can actually decide whether you want it to be on the beat or before the beat. And these are fun words. Read from the page. If it's on the beat, it's called an appoggiatura. If it comes before the beat, it's called a ciaccatura, which sounds sort of like some sort of disease, actually. Anyway, it's very interesting. So let's do the cut, also called a grace note in more classical parlance. So let's do it first as an appoggiatura. So it'll be on the beat. So it'll be, and when I do release the finger from the string, I don't just put it straight up. I do a little hint of a left-hand pizzicato, and that adds a little bit of zing to the whole affair. So good luck. Appoggiatura, we're now on the beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, etc. Easy to do. So let's do it again, only this time let's do it as the ciaccatura. Can you all say that? It took me weeks. A ciaccatura. Fun stuff. So now we're going to put it just a little before the beat so that your second D will actually be on the beat. So it'll be 1, 2. You'll get it. Let's do it again. Before the beat. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2. This is not rocket science. Things could be worse. You could be playing bagpipes. So the next one is, again, and these get so similar. There will not be a test afterwards. Aren't you glad? Okay, the crayon, also called a tap. In mandolin parlance, it would be considered a pull-off. And it's very similar to what we were just doing, except that it's not the note above the note that you're ornamenting. It's more than one note above the note. So you could be doing, and this is the same deal. It could be on the beat, it could be before the beat. Or it could be, or, and if you go go back and look at the bagpipe pages. There is things like that there. So, but this one is just going to be a third above, so the fingering shouldn't be too weird. Let's give it a try. And you could either put it before the beat or, let's make it interesting. So the first measure should be before the beat, and then the next measure should be on the beat, etc. It's just like down bows and up bows, except it's in your brain. 1, 2, 1, 2. Second position. Second position again. So that's the crayon or the tap. And when you do it from a note, a couple notes above where you are, it does sound more Irish, I think. Now, here's another one. It's pretty endless. The strike or the hammer-on, depending on whether you're playing with frets or not. So, and this one I have notated so that it just starts right on that second beat. So it's 1. Also called the Scottish snap. So often in fiddling stuff we're used to, but when you do the Scottish thing, it's snappier. So let's do it from the beginning. 1, 2, 1, 2. Straightforward. There's a couple of fingering hints I want to give you that I did not include in the information I sent out. Measure 6. We've got the B, and then an A sharp, and then a B. Well, if you did the A sharp and the B with the same finger as you might normally do if you weren't looking ahead, but I know you guys were looking ahead. I think it's more effective as an ornament if you go 1, 2. It's just cleaner. So that's what I do there. I do the same thing in measure 11, because it's the same thing. And I still like the fingering by the time I get there. So that's kind of interesting. Any questions so far? See, it's not that difficult.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you like kind of slamming your fingers down on the fingerboard a little more when you do this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a little more oomph.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I definitely suggest the oomph. Yep. Okay. Here's one that's not often discussed when dealing with these issues, and that's the simplicity of passing tones. It's like you color in between the lines. So for example, in this example, I've used a D major arpeggio pattern. So the notes are skipping. They're not consecutive as we've been doing with the scales. So this one you've got, in the upper voice. Oh, you'll need third position, people. Or you could just go, that's another ornament. Anyway, so instead of just, you play the notes in between. So you turn the quarter notes into eighths, which is much easier to do if you do it by ear and don't think about it. But then you play the E, and then you play the F sharp that was in the original, and then you play the G, and then you play the A. And I had to add some 16ths there to get to that D on beat 3. It's just playing all the stuff. And this comes in handy when you're faking a tune and you know that the phrase goes up, but you're not quite sure how up it goes. Just go up. And when you get to the apex of where you think you should be, then you stop and you go somewhere else. Yeah, grasping at straws. So let's try this passing tone 1 and do the passing tones. 1, 2, 3, 1, and 2, and 3. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. If you did that all the way through a tune, eventually someone's going to fall asleep, and it might be you. So these are the kind of things where you might do a couple of them in a row. Skip the ones with the 16ths. You know, so you don't have to do it all the way through or anything. It's just to get the ball rolling, so to speak. Okay, here's another one. Love this ornament. It can get you out of all sorts of problems. The glissando, or the slide. In klezmer music, you would call it a schmear, like what you're supposed to do with cottage cheese on a bagel, that kind of thing. So it's... Now in this one, you have the option of using the same finger all the time or changing. I would use a 1, 2, 1, 2. Then I'd use a 2, and maybe a 2. So you just have to decide, do I use the old finger or the new finger? And when you're preparing a particular thing, it would be wise to practice it both ways. My college teacher, what a brilliant man, he would have me prepare a thing, and all the down bows would be in specific places and all of the up bows would be in specific places. Okay, and I did it, and I was so proud, and I went to my lesson, and then he said, okay, Debbie, now next week I want all the down bows to be ups and all the up bows to be downs. His theory was, this could happen in a performance, and you don't want it to be the first time it's happened. You want to be able to know you could survive it if you had to. Ew. Yuck. So good luck with this, and just enjoy the slides. 1, 2, 1, 2. 2. Put slides anywhere you've got notes, you could do this stuff. It's just a matter of deciding. Now things are getting just a little more complicated. The short roll. So you start from the note above the note you're ornamenting, then you play the note you're ornamenting, and then you play a note below the note you're ornamenting. So you might have to think a little bit with this one, or just read what's there. So it would be, instead of, it would be, 2, run, go. Okay, again, not too complicated, just a little spicier. And it's getting more spicy now. This is usually referred to as the roll, not the short roll, it's the roll. So it's a little more, I'd say cousins of the trill is what it is. So instead of, it's the note above the note, back to the note, and then below. So it's a little bit longer. Good luck. And again, I do recommend find a fingering that will keep the doodle on one string. I will do the same. I think that first one, yuck. Second position, I love second position. Good luck. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second position there. Second position. 2, 3, 2. That's the roll. Okay, now we get into the turn, which is so cute on the page. There it is. You get the little squiggle, the little infinity squiggly thing. It's a turn. And it's a little bit of a more involved event than some of the previous. I tried to do these sequentially. So it's start with the note above, you go back to the note below the note, then back to the note. Got it? Good luck. 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the advantages of these little weird symbols is that it takes a little less space on the page. And when you see it, it's not quite as intimidating as seeing, oh my gosh, there's 16th notes. You see the little squiggle and you know, okay, I should do something there. And hopefully you do what the composer indicated. Now that gets a little more complicated with the next one. This is the inverted turn. So instead of starting with the note above the note you're ornamenting, you start with the note below the note you're ornamenting. But it's basically the same routine, so it would be the note below, back to the note, above the note, and back to the note. That kind of a thing. So good luck. 1, 2, 3, go. That's about as complicated as it gets most of the time. Does anyone, those were pretty much the ornaments I wanted to show you. And then I've got some other things I want to do with that information. But in the meantime, does anyone have any questions?
How do you know, uh, looking at the paper, if it's a turn or an inverted turn?
Okay, as far as I know, the inverted turn should look exactly the same as the other one, except there should be a slash through it. And I know I found it on our computer once, but I don't know where it was. So you just have to look for the slash, and then you know it's a lower one. Thanks for noticing that detail.
I have a question.
Yes.
The difference between the roll and the turn.
Okay, there's the roll. It's the note and above and back and down, and the turn starts from the note above the note, not from the
Oh,
note.
okay.
See, it's subtle, and it's an itty-bitty
Yeah.
difference. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, who's going to notice? Well, my husband
Right.
will notice. I will probably notice. But it does not, it's not if you get it the other way, it's still going to be fun. Mainly, I think the problem with ornaments is making sure that the tune needs it. And if it needs something, then it's just a matter, okay, well, is it cinnamon or is it nutmeg? You just pick one.
And a couple seconds it's gone and it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, no.
I think it's good to agonize over the details in moderation.
Yeah.
Going back to the mordants,
Yes.
I noticed when you did those, you were playing playing it right before the beat. If you see that notation, would it always, the beat would be the note you're heading to?
If there's no indication as to whether it's on the beat or before the beat, you have to use your best judgment. So you try something out. If it feels okay, it's probably okay. If you're playing in a group and you're the only one doing it your way, you're probably right. But then you have to decide, do you want to conform? Do you want to influence the group? So it's, yeah, one of those debate things. So some of this stuff is notated very clearly by some composers and others are not. Generally, when I particularly look at older manuscript music stuff, sometimes you'll just see a something above the note and you will have no idea what they meant. Is it a trill? Is it a turn? Is it something? Is it a grace note? But you know that somebody thought something ought to be happening at that point. And so I feel it would be my responsibility as a player to try something. When I find something I like, I try to do it in a convincing manner and hope for the best. Lots of variables with these things. Any other questions so far? No questions. I thought Susan had something. Okay. Okay. Well, the next batch of information that I wanted to show you is actually some quotes by people who think they know what they're doing. Saint-Saëns, he wrote Carnival of the Animals, lots of great stuff. He said, nowadays, music is written pretty nearly as it should be executed. In the old days, it was otherwise, and conventional signs were used which had to be translated, which is hopefully what we did tonight so far. So that's kind of interesting. Performing old music as it is written is comparable to spelling a foreign language one does not know how to pronounce. Ew. Very cosmic. Everybody interprets it in his own fashion according to his taste. Now this is not a matter of taste, but of erudition. It is not a question of knowing what one prefers, but what the composers intended to write. So we do have to be mind readers to a certain extent, as much as we can stand to be that intrusive. It's very interesting. In 1921, Leopold Auer, very famous teacher and writer, he said the turn and grace notes, which was kind of nice, he got that specific, were the widely prevalent and freely used ornaments of the violin compositions of centuries past. They were mainly employed in airs, that's a very Irish thing to be aware of, and slow movements. It is true that the use of ornamentation was overdone, yet this whole question of embellishment is an obscure one, and we have still to develop an authoritative body of rules, which may serve as a guide to teacher and pupil. Now, as in days gone by, the use of ornaments in violin playing is taught in accordance with the individual teacher's point of view, that's me, and embellishments are played as the individual player's artistic good sense may dictate. That's your defense when someone complains. Mozart complained about ornaments. He said the soloists abused ornamentation to an extent which threatens the total extinction of the principal thing, the melody itself. Now, you may notice this kind of stuff going on in very advanced, cosmic, crowded jazz pieces, where you know there was a melody there at one time, and then everyone's having such a good time with it, ornamenting and improvising and changing it, that you're wondering, well, where's that melody now? So that's a very interesting excursion. And Galamian, very famous teacher, he was my teacher's teacher. And my teacher used to tell me, if you showed up for a lesson with Galamian and he felt that you hadn't practiced, he would take your money and send you home. Ew. The principle that fingers should not be lifted high and should not strike hard is particularly true in its application of trills. When this principle is disregarded, then the building of tension and the slowing of the performance of the trill are the inevitable result. So if trills are giving you trouble, just do the mordents. Your mordents will get stronger and they'll eventually grow into trills. That's my theory. So the next activity I wanted to send you through is that horrible thing. Let's see, now how do I do? Dave, oh, that's right, you've got the chorus there. Hold on, let's see if I can figure this out. Because Dave, I want to do the double window thing.
Go up to view,
View.
go back at the top again.
I'm at the top.
View.
It says preview. No, there it is, view.
And you want 2 pages.
Yes. Yay. Thank you, honey. Okay, now for this piece, I'm going to switch instruments. Let's see. I'll be right back. This is actually a pochette. This is the kind of fiddle that dance masters in the 1800s would use when they're playing and calling dances. And there's no chin rest, and you're not supposed to use a shoulder pad, and you can't. You just can't do it. So it's always held like this, which means you can shift up, but you can't shift back. Also, vibrato is much more complex. I like it, it's just the simplicity of it. And I'm using this because the very first fiddle player that I ever saw compete in a fiddle contest was Cactus Pete from Glenwood, Iowa. Wonderful guy. His intonation was not so hot, but his rhythm was just super solid. And he played a regular fiddle, but he played it down here like that. It is not the most sophisticated sound you will ever hear. But anyway, let's play through the first verse and the chorus once, and then we can discuss where you would put ornaments. And so what you're asking yourselves philosophically is, what did Debbie leave out? So, good luck. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 1, 2. 2, 1, 2. 2. And that's Cactus Pete. So in that first measure, we have an arpeggiated pattern. So you could just play all those notes in between, just turn them into 16ths. So instead of, it could be. Now the danger there is that you would start playing Whiskey Before Breakfast. But you know, things could be worse. Now in the second measure, you have some repeated notes, B, B, and if it was a bagpipe player, they would have to do something after the first B, or the second B would just sound like a long B from the first B. So instead of, I would go right to my old friend the mordant. You could even do a lower mordant. And then you could do another passing tone thing. Now here we've got 3 beats of nothing. You could put something there. You could go, you know, that kind of a thing would be helpful, fun there. So. And another thing I always suggest to my students, it is good to be able to sing the songs you're playing. So let's sing the first verse. And what I do chord-wise is I pluck the D string for the D chord with left hand little finger pizzicato. For the G, I just pluck the G and the D. And for the A, I pluck the A and the E. And if I can make all of that transition, it works out just fine. So let's sing the first verse and the chorus. Cactus Pete was always cheerful. He knew just what tunes to choose. Cactus Pete would enter contests. Cactus Pete would often lose. Cactus Pete sent music flying, flying through the air so free. Then the tunes met other fiddlers, just like you and me. Feel the rhythm in our feet when we play like Cactus Pete. All those tunes are really neat when we play like Cactus Pete. Feel the rhythm in our feet when we play like Cactus Pete. Play them once and then repeat. Play them just like Cactus Pete. So did anyone find any places to add an ornament that I didn't add or that you wanted to? Any ideas? There are no wrong answers to that question. It's just a matter of finding, where you think the melody needs it. Now, usually when I am evaluating a melody, if it sounds great when I leave it alone, I just leave it alone. But every now and then there are places where the tune sort of reaches out to you and says, I need a little help here. And so that's when you do that sort of thing.
Well, I noticed that unlike a lot of fiddle tunes, there were those measures of rest. So obviously, most fiddle tunes you're just like constantly playing. You're not like you're in a string quartet where you get to take a break. So,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, that was where I had to put in something, you know.
What-
So I just put in some runs. I put in some double stops too, but we didn't talk about those. But so
Yeah.
just some chords just to fill that in.
And one of the reasons that I absolutely deliberately created those rests, I can't remember who was, I don't know, somebody, was it, I don't know, somebody that I thought knew what they were doing. They said when you're singing, if you have something important to say, you can't just say something important and then right away say something important and then right away say something important. It is good if the audience has a beat or two to let it sink in. And Cactus Pete was such a cosmic character. I mean, he would play, you know, like this, like the verse says, with his fiddle like this, and he had a pot belly and a tight belt, and the belly would sort of drape over the belt, and it was jelly when he would play. It was just so hysterical. Fun guy. So yeah, that's why I deliberately did that, because he knew what tunes to choose. That was important. And the grandkids clogging by his side, such an image. They lived in Murray, by the way, the grandkids. And he was always just himself. I remember one time he was playing at a fiddle contest, and he wanted me to back him up on guitar, and I was really even worse then than I am now. And I said, no, you need someone good. He said, no, I want you. Ew. Yeah, so that was kind of crazy. Any other questions or comments or suggestions or any ornaments that you know of that I didn't touch on? Let's see, I guess not. Just checking the chat.
So in the chat, if people haven't noticed, I did put in the handouts that Debbie had. So everything that you've seen displayed, you should be able to download it. If for some reason you're having an issue with that, just send an email to msfafiddlers@gmail.com and I'll shoot you a copy of it. So, and we'll put some links up so that you can get that later as well. So some of these, you know, I know you mentioned some of these work for Irish music. Are there some that you would like not use in Celtic, but you would use in other old time? I mean, are there some rules about what might fit better in different genres?
Well, there might be things that people would be expecting, but then they wouldn't hire me because
Okay.
I just take whatever I can do and put it where I think it will do the most good. But specifically, I don't think there's anything really forbidden that goes on. No. There's some, well, there's a kvetch that happens in klezmer music that you probably wouldn't use in Irish, but it's just, but it's a mournful thing. I would use it in Irish airs. So I think it depends more on the emotional content of the tune than of the origin of the tune. It's a very subjective space. That's why I like it. Another thing that some people consider ornaments, as well we should, is the use of vibrato. And I deliberately did not go there because, you know, I thought this would be enough crazy stuff. But in the old days, vibrato was not a thing. It gradually became a thing. And as it was becoming a thing, the thing it was an ornament. It was not used all the time. So instead of, okay, I need to think. There's a little slide. So I save the vibrato until. So it was used more as an ornament. The danger with vibrato is once you learn how to do it, you want to do it all the time. And that is hardly ever good for the tune. you would need some relief from it. So it would just depend. Let's see, another melodic thing. Oh yeah, well, there are some exceptions. You know, in a piece like that, lots of slides, lots of vibrato, in the Romantic era. You know, that kind of thing. So it just depends what you're playing and what the tune needs, if it needs anything. Maybe it
So
needs
there was a
emphasis.
question in the chat about where was the fiddle contest that you ran into Cactus Pete?
Springfield, Nebraska.
Ah, okay.
Wasn't it? I think it was Springfield. The fiddle contest where Cactus Pete played, and
They used to have a Nebraska state contest.
yeah, the Nebraska State Fiddle Contest used to happen in Springfield, and they don't do it anymore. They're having, it's always a story, but that's where it was, and he was so impressive. I mean, because you just wanted to dance, you just felt the rhythm. It was in his feet. It was, yeah, it was great. So if you haven't been to a lot of events like that, go before the next pandemic.
The next pandemic, man.
Well, that's when you'll write all your grants and it'll.
Oh,
get
well, there you
stuff
go.
done. Chicken soup. But this deal about ornaments, just don't obsess about it. Just dive in every now and then. With every tune that you review and play, ask yourself the question, does it need anything? Or is there anything that I could do to it, you know, with some level of control and taste? And just experiment, and if you like it, then do it again. If you don't like it, don't do it. And hopefully this will alert you to listening more carefully to other folks when they're playing things.